everybody, welcome to Random Considerations. This video is going to be one of several videos that I've recorded from planting my Arbor Day Foundation trees, which I've been ordering every year now, a few at a time every year now since fall of 2012, I think was my first order. And since then I've lost a few, and I've figured out different ways of planting that seem to have the best success, and so I'm going to share with you over the course of all these videos the best method that I have come up with for planting my trees from Arbor Day. The trees that I receive, they do have non-bare root trees, but all the trees that I tend to order from Arbor Day are bare root trees, which means that instead of being in a pot like most people think of when you buy a tree, they actually come to you without any kind of soil or being in a pot or anything. The roots are, as it indicates, they're bare roots. When you get them, they kind of come in this gel type. It's kind of a combination of wet cardboardy paper and this gel that's used by florists and that sort of thing. But other than that, and that's more for shipping. Otherwise, they're just completely bare root trees. And it takes a little bit more, a little different type of planting to plant a bare root tree than it does one that comes in a pot. When you receive your trees from Arbor Day, or when you order trees from Arbor Day, you'll receive them at any time. If you order them in like the last half of the year, you'll receive them in the fall. Or otherwise you'll receive them in the spring. There's like a window of time twice a year that Arbor Day actually sends out the trees. So in my case, I always tend to order my trees in the latter half of the year, and therefore I receive my trees during the fall shipment. And it's generally where in that time frame you fall into, depends on where you live. For me, I live in Central Texas, so I receive my trees usually about a week to 2 weeks before Christmas. And the thing is you don't actually get charged for your trees until they go to ship your trees. So even though I ordered my trees, I think it was August or September I actually ordered the trees, they don't actually charge me for the trees until December, right before they ship them to me. If you look at this graphic, it's a picture of the website and the address is also up at the top, of where you can look on Arbor Day and where they kind of give you an idea of when their shipping times are. And on that same page, there's a area where you can put in your zip code and they can give you a more defined idea of where in that time frame you might fall. So even though I've done a video for each tree that I plant, there's not much variation to how I plant my different trees. I pretty much kind of follow the same standard method to planting my trees, but there might be slight variations from video to video, more dependent upon the soil in which I'm planting it in. Because even though I'm planting all these trees on my property, and I live in the city on a fairly normal sized suburban plot, so I don't have a lot of land, because of the way that houses are built and that sort of thing, and what they do to the ground before they even start building a house, especially in suburban areas, the type of soil that's in one area of my yard might be very different from another part of my yard. And based on that, it might depend on how much or how little extra garden soil I add into it. And I'll go more into the garden soil later in the video. And something I do want to mention, and I'm going to mention this in each of the videos, is that it's particularly if you live in an urban environment, maybe true also if you live in the country, depending on how far out and how what kind of utilities you have going to your property or not. You're going to want to have the city or whoever you need to contact in your area to come and mark out your property where all the electrical lines are, the gas lines are, water pipes and all that sort of stuff that are buried in the ground on your property are. Because you want to make sure that you don't dig where there's utility lines of any kind, utility pipes and utility lines. It could be very dangerous, particularly with gas lines or electrical lines. But aside from just dangerous, even if it weren't dangerous, you're still putting not only your own utility availability, but your neighbor's utility availability at risk. So be sure you do that before you go digging holes in your yard to plant trees. So this particular peach tree that I received from Arbor Day is called a Hale Haven Peach Tree. And I specifically chose this tree for a few reasons. One, it says that it can grow between zones 5 through 8. And where I live in Central Texas, I live in the northern part of Austin, the Austin greater area. And that, according to Arbor Day's hardiness zones, my area is kind of on the border between zone 8 and zone 9. So I tend to look at trees that go for zone 8 or zone 9. This particular tree, it just comes in at zone 8. So I might end up needing to baby it a little bit more because I'm kind of cutting it close with where my zone is. But you do want to look at, if you look at the Arbor Day site, there's a map on the left side of the screen, and there's a little map of the United States, the continental United States, and it looks like a rainbow. It's got all these rainbow colors. And above that is a link that says hardiness zone lookup. If you click that, you can go over and put in your zip code, and it'll tell you what zone you're in. If you're like me, you're kind of on the border between zone and 8, it'll actually tell you you're in zones 8 and 9. Or between 8 and 9. I'm in between 8 and 9, so it'll tell you 8 and 9. If you're pretty much smack dab in the middle of a zone, it'll only give you one zone. Another reason that I chose the Hale Haven is because it specifically says that it's a self-pollinating tree. Now, so far in my experience with peach trees, most peach trees I've come across tend to be self-pollinating. I don't know if that's true of all peach trees, but whenever I look up any kind of a fruit tree, I try to get a self-pollinating fruit tree. Now, what self-pollinate means is that it doesn't need another tree to pollinate the flowers. That doesn't mean that your trees can't benefit from having more than one tree. It might fruit more if you have more than one tree, but if you're limited on space, then getting a self-pollinating tree might be the best option for you, because then you don't need a second tree for it to provide fruit. Another reason I got this tree is the ripening time frame. According to the website, the ripening of the fruit happens between mid-June to mid-July. And part of why I think that's good is because I already have one peach tree. I got it from my local grocery store, and I don't know what kind of variety it is. All I know is that it puts out flowers in February, as early as the beginning of February, and I've got peaches by early April. So I'm looking forward to having another peach tree that will hopefully have a better idea of where it's at, and it will actually produce peaches between June and July. And in that case, I'm actually getting peaches twice a year instead of just the once a year. So this tree here is actually the grocery store peach tree, and it's fairly big. And if you look at this shot, or this picture here, this is actually a picture of that same peach tree when I planted it back in March of 2012. So here we are, December 2014, and it actually has lost a lot of leaves because of the time of year. But normally when spring comes around and it gets its leaves back, it's just covered in green, droopy leaves. It's very pretty, and it's also gotten very tall. I really need to prune it down. If it grows any higher, I'll never get peaches off the top. I'm debating on how low I'm going to prune down the old tree, because another aspect to having trees in your yard in an urban setting is you kind of want your trees to serve more than one purpose. So while I'm planting these trees for their fruit, I'm also planting trees in this particular area to provide a little extra shade to the wall of that side of my house. Fruit trees aren't really known for their shadiness. They're not shade trees. They don't get as big as a shade tree. But if I could get it to provide a little bit of shadow and sunblock, particularly during the summer, on that wall, then if it grows a little higher, then I can reach the top peach trees, and I guess maybe the top peaches, then I guess maybe the birds can just have at those. I don't know. So I don't necessarily want to get too high, but I'm probably going to let it grow a little higher than you would typically let a fruit tree grow, if that makes sense. So coming back to our planting, so when you get ready to dig for your plant, you're going to want to set up a wheelbarrow as close to your plant, the hole that you're going to be digging as possible, because you're going to throw all the soil that you're digging up into that wheelbarrow. And I'll show you why later into the video. You want your hole to be about 1 foot to 1.5 feet wide. You can go more than that, but I wouldn't really go less than that. You want to give a little bit of room for those roots to kind of establish themselves and expand out a little bit. And then as far as depth goes, it varies from plant to plant, but you want the bottom of your, most bottom part of your roots to just kind of graze the bottom of the hole. And you want there's usually a little area on the plant where you can tell they make these new trees, particularly fruit trees, from cuttings from prior trees, so they can maintain the same genetics to create a certain variety of peach or whatever the fruit is. So it's not grown from seed, it's grown from a cutting, and you can see kind of where that cutting happened. There's usually a pruning mark, like the clear pruning mark or a nub or something where it was pruned. That's going to be kind of the part that needs to be level with the rest of the ground. So whatever that is, that's how deep your hole is going to be. Now in this part of the video, I actually had to stop digging because I came across a root. And this root looks to be coming from the neighbor's big giant pecan tree. It looks like its root system has come well into my yard. And so I'm just going to go ahead and clip that. Don't worry about killing the tree here. It's just one small root of a very large root system, and the tree will survive. Now that you've dug out the soil from the hole and you've got it as deep and as wide as you want it to be, and you've put all of that soil in your wheelbarrow, it's a good idea to try to break up the clumps a little bit. And your goal by the end of this is to have your soil broken up as finely as possible, because this is going to help get that soil in between those bare roots. And then we also want to add in a garden soil. Now you're adding it into the native soil because the plant needs to get used to the native soil, so we don't want to get rid of the native soil altogether. But it's a new plant, so it needs a little bit more than the native soil might be able to give it in the beginning of its life. So you're going to add in a garden soil, preferably one I prefer to add in a garden soil like this one, that is designed specific, or actually acclimated specifically to trees and shrubs. But whatever type of compost and mulchy kind of whatever you want to add to it, it's fine. I just go with this bag of garden soil for trees and shrubs. Now the amount of garden soil that you add could vary. This particular area I've had a garden in, it's had quite a bit of nutrition added to the soil over the course of the last 5 or 6 years already, so I'm not adding as much garden soil to this mixture as I probably will in some of my other trees. Now you also want to make sure you scoop out as much of the big chunks of grass and weeds that you've dug up as much as possible, and get the soil off of them and throw them out. And this is mainly due to as these weeds decompose, because they're no longer going to be on the surface and growing like they should be, they're going to die, and as they decompose, it could actually leach nutrients from the soil that your tree needs, and it could, in effect, kill your tree as a result. So while if you have a little bit of discarded weeds in there here and there, is not a huge deal. You want to get the big chunks of stuff out at least, you know. Doesn't need to be perfect, you just want to get a big chunk of it taken out. Now that your soil is prepared, you're going to want to tip the wheel. What I do is I tip the wheelbarrow over to where the soil pretty much kind of comes out next to, but doesn't fall into the hole that you've dug. This makes it easier to scoop in the soil as you're planting your tree while you hold the tree at the same time. Now you just slowly start to scoop in the soil and make sure it's broken down into small enough chunks, and kind of ease a lot of that soil into and around the roots, and you just slowly fill in the hole. You don't want to crush the roots too much or condense them into one spot. You want to let the roots be where they want to be as much as possible. And then slowly fill up the hole. You hold on to the tree until the tree can hold on to itself. You have enough soil in the hole to where the tree can stand on its own. And then once it's at that point, you can let go of the tree. And you just keep filling the hole, keep filling the hole, keep filling the hole. And even though you've added soil, garden soil, to all that soil you dug out, you're going to use all of the soil, all of that dirt from that wheelbarrow, every bit of it. It may seem like it's twice as much as you dug out of the hole, but trust me, use all of the soil. This is going to really hold the tree in and give it everything that it needs. Once you've got all the soil scooped out, you're going to start to kind of swirl around the tree a little bit to where you start to develop a well at the base of the tree, a little inset, and this is going to be allow water to pool up. When you water the tree, the water will kind of set up in a pool here temporarily until it seeps down into the soil. If your soil is exceptionally dry while you're doing this planting and you go to water, it's going to take a while for it to really well up. For my tree, it had rained recently, quite a bit recently, so the soil was very, very moist already. So it really didn't take long for watering. So once you start watering, you just keep watering until the well fills up with water entirely. And then once it's reached the top and it doesn't seem to be sinking down too much, you could consider yourself done watering. And even so, when you come back in about 10 or 15 minutes, the well was likely to have completely dried. That means all the water will have sunk down into that loose soil that you've got down there. So that's pretty much it. As I finish up all the other videos, I'll be sure to include a list of each of the trees that I do a video on in the descriptions of each video, so that if you want to go and watch one of the other videos, you can. And then there's also going to be an additional video of me taking all of the plants out of the box, because when they ship your trees to you, they kind of have them all bundled together, and so it's just a brief video where I show how I separate the trees from each other without damaging them. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more videos from Random Considerations, go ahead and subscribe to our channel here. You can also check out our website at randomconsiderations.com. It'll be linked below. And we also have a Facebook, which is also linked below. I also have another channel called Monkey in My Tree. It's a genealogy channel, so if you're interested in that, that's also down in the description below. And there's a Facebook and a Facebook page for Monkey in My Tree, as well as a section of Random Considerations is also devoted to Monkey in My Tree. So if you're interested in genealogy, either to get genealogy services or just interested in seeing other people's work and just learning more about genealogy in general, go ahead and check out Monkey in My Tree as well. So that's going to be it. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.